When you go to scale, people get super, hey, we need to outsource, we need to delegate. And I'm all for that, okay? A lot of times, though, when an entrepreneur that's never delegated before or outsourced, they get to the point where they outsource when it really, really hurts, right? To the point where they're almost burnt out. Or they start outsourcing things that they just simply don't want to do because they don't understand it, right? So I'll see this all the time where somebody will outsource their social media, and their social media has been killing it, but they kind of like outsourced the responsibility. So they didn't outsource the outcome, right? So the outcome would be, for example, social media. Will allow my social media to grow and have a good engagement and make it so that I can generate more leads and revenue. They outsource the responsibility. They're like, I don't want anything to do with it, right? I just want to focus on the thing I want to focus on. And it's at that moment where you just screwed up. Social media is one thing. Let's talk about accounting. If I had $1 for every time that an entrepreneur came to me and said, well, my accountant messed up the form and now I have back taxes. Or my accountant had, told me it was going to be $50,000 more than I thought it was going to be. If I ask you how much money you made last month and you don't know, that's not your accountant's fault. If you have a tax form and it was more money than you thought, that's not your accountant's fault. If your bookkeeping's not the way that it needs to be, that's your fault. The sooner that you take complete responsibility for everything in your life, including your money, including your finances, including your social media, including your operations, including your COO, or whatever it might be, the better your life's going to be. But here's what we do. When we don't know something, we think somebody else is going to be better than us. That's not true. So your tax advisor may be better at taxes, but if you just let him go and do his thing and don't even talk about it and you don't learn about it, you don't understand it, you've relinquished the responsibility to someone that you may pay $10,000 or $20,000 a year to. Generally doesn't work out very well. Your social media manager, more than likely, if you're paying your social media manager, let's say $5,000, let's say you're paying them $60,000 or $70,000 a month. Are they better than you just because they went and did a certification, they had a couple clients? Maybe they're better at the tactical elements, but you're still going to be responsible for the strategy, are you not? So when social media doesn't work and you say, well, this person made it not work. No, it's not. It's actually you that didn't make it work. A few years ago, I hired a CEO for a company. It was about 6 years ago. And he was a great guy, and he was actually a pretty good CEO. I hired a CEO because I didn't want to run a company, but in reality, I didn't want to have the company to start with. Okay, so I had this 8-figure company. I was running the company. I had a CEO, and I could look at it and say, you know what? This guy ran it into the ground. He didn't run it into the ground. I ran it into the ground, and I ran it into the ground because I didn't want to have that business, but I deluded myself by thinking that I had, and I wanted to do it. He's actually an incredible CEO, incredible team leader, everything else. And at the time, I was like, well, this guy ran it into the ground. But in reality, I gave my responsibility for my company to another person, not because I wanted him to run it, but because I didn't want to have the responsibility if it messed up. I didn't want the responsibility on my back because I was too small. I wasn't being a leader in my life to be able to take the responsibility to say, you know what? I have this company and I don't want to run it, so either I'm going to sell it or I'm going to close it down right now instead of trying to give it to somebody else. With my taxes, a few years ago, I had a bunch of money and I had a bunch of taxes that I was going to need to pay. And I hired a tax person, great tax person, wonderful tax person. He came up with this strategy. I said, okay, well, I'm going to put money here and there, and I'm going to defer taxes here and there. In about 2 years, I was like, you know what? This doesn't actually make any sense to me. Now, I could go and say I could blame that person. He was doing his job. What I didn't do is learn the tax code. What I didn't do is learn how taxes were going to work for me, how I was going to have my investment strategy. So I literally hired somebody as a mentor to teach me the tax code, so that I could understand. Now, I don't do my own taxes, I don't do my own accounting or my own bookkeeping, but I understand exactly how it works and my strategy for me. And this is where most people go wrong. They are overwhelmed by it. They think somebody's better than them, and someone may be better at doing the task at hand, but you're always going to be the best at being able to have full ownership and responsibility. So never outsource the responsibility. You can outsource the task, you can outsource the outcome, but if you outsource the responsibility, it will fail 100% of the time because you are responsible for everything in your life.